What's going on, travelers? I'm just going to give you a second to tune in here. Tonight, we're going to be talking about post-corona travel, refunds, all the things that you need to know to get everything back on track due to the corona outbreak. And as you guys are tuning in, just let me know where you're watching from. And I want to just kind of share the scope of the problem in the travel world, and then how it could really help you to kind of figure out how you're going to take advantage of it, number one. But number two, if you were like many of us who had travel plans that were canceled, it could be a very frustrating time, and has been for me. So first is there's some really good news. 87% of Americans are hoping to take a vacation by the end of this year, though the vast majority of those are going to be within driving distance. Now, that's important for a bunch of different reasons. Number one, if you're doing a vacation close to home, so I live in Tennessee as an example, and when you're looking at the national parks and those kind of things, that means there's going to be probably overcrowding, and that means things maybe like the beach aren't going to be as crowded. The vast majority of people that were polled in one of the studies showed that they're looking at a max of 4 hours as far as the distance that they're going to be willing to travel in order to have a vacation this year. Travel will recover, but is it going to be the same? And, there's a lot that's going to come into this. They're first expecting that domestic recovery isn't going to really even begin to happen until October. That means prices are going to be low. Right now, you could actually book, most, because I'm going to talk about this in a second, most of the things that you would like to do for significantly less if you've got a little extra in the bank account in order to look forward to it, right? However, flights are down by over 80% from this time last year. That's just to kind of give you some scope on what's happening in the travel industry at large. Is it safe to travel? Obviously, I'm not a doctor. You need to talk to your physician. You need to talk to the people that are involved in your life about that. Here's what I would say. If you're not already immune compromised or in the age category to where the coronavirus really has the highest mortality rate, for the most part, I believe that you should be safe to begin to resume travel. Of course, talk to your family, talk to your medical providers, those kind of things. They're saying that international travel is going to take roughly another 18 months before it even begins recovery. That's substantial, and for many of you, that hurts me deeply. Like, I can't even imagine 18 more months of this. And if you didn't happen to catch it, the international travel ban has been extended until July 21st. Now, there are some exceptions to that. You can go to Mexico. The Bahamas opened. I believe that you're able to travel to the Bahamas from the U.S. I have to go back and look. And there's a couple of the Caribbean locations that have opened up for us to begin to travel to. And, that's significant because at least you get some beach time. You get to get, out. For those of you on here tonight that had your travel plans drastically affected by the outbreak of COVID, what do you do? How do you navigate this situation? All those different type of things. And let me just kind of explain what's happened. And I'm just going to give you one airline statistics. In the height of the coronavirus, Southwest was canceling 1,500 flights per day. 1,500 flights per day. This means millions and millions of people are in the queue, including me, to get refunds on airfare. I've been fighting for a refund since March, and it's not that they don't want to give the refund. It's that it was an international trip, and it's literally in the queue. I just got an email. Thank you for your patience. We're still working on getting to your, number. And when you understand the scope of how Americans fly, it's estimated that 1.7 million Americans fly every day up until Corona. Okay. 1.7 million. And if you take, let's just be, a little aggressive and say the travel ban really didn't happen until March 25th. From March 25th until, it's still going on. So people are still having flights canceled or delayed and all those kind of things. Think about how many millions of people that is. That's over 80 million right there. Okay. Now, the good news for you, and as you guys are hopping in, if you've got questions about Corona, no, me neither. Hey, if you get a chance, let me see, go to the StreamYard so I can see who just posted. Oh man, I can't wait that long because neither can I. It's horrible. But there's some good news for us. The Department of Transportation ruled that the airfare that was canceled must give you a refund. And I've already helped several of you with this. It's much easier domestically than it is internationally. However, the international community has now come on board with that as well. And they've really started to hammer down some of that process to where if you were flying, let's say you flew from the US to England and then you were going from England to Germany and your flight between England and Germany got canceled, you're now covered even though you're an American. There's a bunch of that stuff that's beginning to happen. And that needs to happen, right? I mean, I think we can all agree that needs to happen. The airlines need to compensate us. They need to pay us back and not with travel vouchers. But if you don't need the money, the travel vouchers you can actually use to negotiate. So let's say I spent $1,000 on a flight and they're offering me $1,000 in travel voucher. I can return with the Department of Transportation policy and say, no, I don't want 1,000. I want 2,500 in credit. Okay. Because you're required by law. We were told the other day we would get a refund in the next 20 days. Oh, good. I'm glad you got it. I'm glad you got it. That's awesome news, right? And this is what I do, guys. Flights are my baby. So if you're having trouble getting your refund with your flight, you've got to be firm. You've got to tell them, no, the Department of Transportation has already ruled that you owe me this. And if you don't, I'm going to report you. As a matter of fact, one of the worst airlines in doing the refunds is United. And United has now been warned by the Department of Transportation that if they don't expedite their refund and their customer service process with this, they're going to be in trouble. The Department of Transportation is not playing with this. So I'm happy about that. There's a bunch of stuff that the Department of Transportation, I think, could do to improve the situation. But overall, I'm pretty happy with the way that they've handled it. So let me see here. Just a couple other things. Already we're beginning to see airlines contemplating the forcing of wearing masks. There's even been talk of doing temperature checks, and some countries are actually considering vaccination records and things of that nature. I do not believe that America is there yet. I know that I flew to Texas just the other week. While I was in Texas, one flight, same airline, one flight required me to put it on. The other one didn't. I actually have a video. I'll post it. The airports are still relatively empty. Airfare is relatively inexpensive still. And this is a great opportunity for you. It's a great opportunity in that we know in the outdoors that the coronavirus is not nearly as contagious. It's not nearly as what's the word? Not persuasive. Whatever that word is, where it's super aggressive. So you can go out and you can enjoy the great outdoors. And let me just give you a couple of ideas. So I initially planned a outdoor road trip for me and my kids. It was going to cost roughly $2,600. But because airfare dropped, I got all 5 tickets for just $250. Rental cars have dropped. Hotels have dropped. Airbnbs. It was United. Yeah. See, United is in a lot of trouble. The people are beginning to voice their outrage to the airlines for the airlines' treatment of us. We are the consumer. You owe us. You canceled the flight, right? Or the international ban. You know, there's a bunch of different stuff that goes into this, but you owe us. And you know, my hope is that I can help you guys recover from this with the least amount of pain as possible. Now, listen, I'm on the phone every single week. We had 15 people going in Iceland. For all my Iceland fans, where you at? And the international travel ban took place a day or two before we flew. And Icelandic Air, which does more than just Iceland, has been completely overwhelmed. And here's the truth, guys. Travel insurance did not save hardly anybody. And the reason why it didn't save anybody is, in my opinion, bullshit. Which was, they said that you should, that the coronavirus was basically, this was expected if you bought your travel insurance after January 25th. Or January 20th, whichever one it was, I don't remember. And so there is going to be ramifications for that, for the travel insurance industry, because that's unethical. No one could have forecasted that coronavirus was going to shut down the world the way it did. Nobody could have anticipated that. The Department of Defense took actions that I've never seen. The country took actions that none of us in our history have seen. And so for the travel insurance industry to come out and say that this was, I mean, I even saw one claim, somebody messaged me, one claim, the travel insurance company was claiming that because President Trump enacted the National Defense Production Act, that it became an act of war. They were doing anything they could. Now, I get it from their perspective in a way, because it's going to bankrupt a bunch of them, right? But many of us paid for travel insurance and we're left holding the bill. And going forward, it's being recommended, and it's not that much more money, but it's being recommended that you can't cancel for any reason insurance. Now, we have to monitor those prices. We have to see what that's going to look like over the course of time, and if they're going to gouge the American people for that security. As of right now, I haven't seen that. Now, the other way that you can get around those kind of travel insurance issues is by getting a Chase Sapphire Preferred or getting an Amex, because they already come with really top-notch travel insurance protections for their consumers. This is not a credit card plug. If you don't have the discipline to pay that joker off every month, don't mess with it. But if you are a disciplined person, because remember, my goal is to help you travel the world more often, right? And credit card debt does the opposite of that. So if you have that discipline, it's a great option for you. It comes free with your card. So what I'm going to do here just real quick is I'm going to transition. I'm just going to let you guys, if you have any questions, I'm not going to wait a ton of time. But if you guys have any questions, go ahead and pop them in to the feed. I'm using StreamYard, so if you haven't signed up yet, many of you, I can't see who you are when you're commenting. Do me a favor, go to StreamYard and sign up so that you can actually, so I can actually see who you are. And then, so what's your opinion of now? I'm debating getting our tickets from American, and I'm looking at the lowest price ones because although it says no changes, they have a policy right now that you can cancel if necessary if you buy before June. So whoever that is, where are you going? If you are going domestic and you're not going to like New York, or you're not going to Michigan, you're not going to one of the hotbeds, I would go because the prices are low enough. I love the prices right now because you can legitimately fly just about anywhere as long as you follow the other rules, which I'm going to talk about tomorrow night. If you follow the rules of how to purchase airfare, I'm getting tickets for $50. As a matter of fact, I just found tickets to Puerto Rico for somebody else, and they were like $100. Okay, from California to New York. I personally would not go to New York, depending on where you're going in New York. If you're going to Buffalo, I'd probably go. If you're going up to like what's the other one? Not Buffalo, but the other one. I would not go to New York City or New Jersey, and I don't even know if you can. So my opinion is I would not do that. All right. Now, John Rinkin personally would, because I'm healthy. I don't have any issues. I don't know you. I can't see who you are, but I probably would advise against it. They are still not out of the woods out of there in New York yet. And unless you've got like a death in the family or somebody's very ill and it might be your last opportunity to see them, I just don't know that I would take that risk. Right. I'm a knucklehead. So if I had a reason to be there, I'd probably still go just because I am. But that's a great question. And you're looking at if you buy, but if you travel before the end of September, I'd probably buy that, because I think that as winter and fall hits, that's probably going to be a better time frame. And if you cancel, man, there's only 15 days left in the month. Pop in there how much that ticket is, and I'll answer it a little bit later. Okay. So let's see, domestic. Yeah, if it's domestic, most domestic airfare, I'd be fairly comfortable with purchasing now. So even without insurance, I think that you could do that fairly safely. Again, the hotbeds I would kind of avoid. I would avoid Seattle, right? And I wouldn't avoid Seattle because of Corona. I would avoid Seattle because of the craziness in Seattle. Other way around. We live in Buffalo. Oh yeah. If you live in Buffalo and you're going to California, I would totally go. Totally. Not even a question. What would the ticket prices? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a series of lives over the course of the next couple of weeks, where I'm going to talk about the best ways to cut the cost of airfare, even without Corona. These principles work, whether we're talking about the pandemic or not. I'm going to talk about how you can really shortchange the cost of hotels, the cost of rental cars. And I forgot to mention this. I meant to, and then I got kind of sidetracked. Cruises are still in trouble. So if you are a cruiser and you love cruises, I would not be booking cruises anytime soon. We're not quite sure what the ramifications of cruises, the effect of the pandemic on cruises. There's a cruise line that just announced, I think it was Norwegian, that they're canceling cruises through October. I was looking online, and cruises are literally, I'm not even kidding, all over the place. In March of next year, they're twice as expensive as they've ever been. And in January, they're lower than I've ever seen them. I saw a cruise this morning. I think it was like $300 for 7 days. And then you'll have the port fees and taxes. So probably it was $400. And I was like, this has got to be an error. This can't be right. So, we really have to kind of pay attention to the signs. Disney is opening back up next month. I think it was Hilton. It was either Hilton or Marriott's CEO said the recovery of travel has more to do with the reopening of Florida's Disney and Universal than it does with the pandemic around the world. And what he was really talking about was how many people actually go to Florida for the express purpose of Disney and Universal, and how that's a microcosm of the travel industry at large, and how comfortable Americans are now with travel based on where they were in March. So that's going to be interesting to see. I saw an article either this morning or yesterday morning where people are a little frustrated over Universal's opening. Social distancing was not being observed. There was a bunch of people out with masks, and 280 is yesterday. The day before they were, yeah. So listen, but those prices will fluctuate. So if it was 280 yesterday and then 175 the day before, just be patient. The optimum window is 21 days. Under coronavirus, we don't know what the optimum window is, but I promise you those are going to probably fluctuate a little bit more. So hit me up. I'll hit you up. I'll give you some recommendations on how to navigate that. I'm especially interested to see how Universal's opening eventually pans out and how Disney's opening pans out next month. But Disney's already talked about that they're not opening their resorts. It's only the park for so much time. And I can't remember what that date was exactly, but the big takeaway is that if you have disposable income, now's the time to buy travel. Even if we're talking spring break next year, Christmas break this year, it might not be international. I looked at plane tickets from Chicago to Ireland, and they're still like outrageous priced. It was like $1,900. I would never pay that. Never. I wouldn't pay that for peak season. I wouldn't pay that for Christmas, right? That's just absolutely outrageous. But then I've seen tickets to other places that are like next to nothing. So if it's a domestic trip, you could actually save 50, 60% right now for your spring break, for your Christmas break, etc. And that gives us some time to kind of see how the world handles the aftermath of the pandemic. Okay. Let's see. Let me check if I've got any more questions. Yeah, Shannon. I mean, it's just heartbreaking. Luckily, all you guys have been so gracious as we navigate through this craziness. So, all right, I'm going to go ahead and log off. Before I log off, I'm just going to do this. If you're interested in learning how you can travel more often for less money, or if you're interested in learning how you could start to cut the cost of airfare and hotels by up to 80%, I want you just to drop the travel emoji, whichever one you want. It could be a GIF, it could be an airplane, a boat, a rental car. I don't care. Just drop me an emoji. I'll reach out to you. I'll share some information. I've got some great stuff happening inside the travel community. I've got some partnerships that I've developed even during the pandemic that really will benefit you over the long haul and help you travel more often for less money. And I'll see you tomorrow night. I'm not sure if I'm going to go 6 o'clock again, but if you're paying attention, I'll post something and we'll see you tomorrow. Have a great night.